I did have a couple questions relating back to the assignment we just finished. One, one of them, I think, was answered in the material for our current module, which is like, how bad is it to have quads that are folded? And I
Mm-hmm.
guess it just relates to the shading issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then
Sharing post button. Post.
it had a cat head on the end and it had a little face, and I couldn't figure out how to put the face on there in an easy way. So I just kind of sort of, it was never joined up with it. Oh, can you not understand me?
I
Should I
didn't
type the
I didn't get
question
most of it.
or just repeat? Okay, I will speak slowly. Can you hear me? Is that
Speaking
working?
slowly doesn't help because it's your connection is going in and out. So um,
Huh, I don't know why that is. Okay, here. Let me move. Okay, is this any better?
hopefully, so far.
Okay. So I had issues with putting decorations on objects when the shape did not easily lend itself to coming straight out of the existing geometry.
Mhm.
So for instance, the cat's face, the little, this little shape, on the scabbard of my sword, it had this like decoration thing that I couldn't make. I don't know, I couldn't do it without creating all kinds of problems. So I was just wondering what the best way is to handle things like that. Um, I don't know if that makes any sense without context. I could,
So yeah, you're trying to use what body part to create extra stuff or something.
well, yeah, so the sword of my character has a cat head on the end of it. So like a
Mm-hmm.
sphere on the end of it, and it's got little ears. I was able to make the ears come out of the
Mm-hmm.
sphere that made it. But then like for the mouth, just the line basically, like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how to do that because it just didn't, correspond to any kind of existing topology on the sphere. So what I ended up doing is just making a curve
Mm-hmm.
and sort of putting it there, but I don't know if that was I didn't know if that was the best. Um,
It would be the same process of creating the mouth that we went over last week in your characters. You have to create a slit and then do all
oh,
that.
so just make more edge loops and just try to make it come out of it.
Yeah, was it a very like low poly sphere that you used or
It was pretty simple. So I guess I
yeah.
could have done that. Okay.
Yeah, without knowing how much geometry your sphere had, not
Right.
maybe
Okay.
it could have them. I don't know.
I was getting tired too, so maybe I just wasn't thinking. That's kind of my only question besides the UV terms that I had for now.
Okay.
Move here.
So I had a
Yeah.
a quick little question for you. So I submitted last night and I added Solidify on some of my objects when it came to the clothing. Now, I don't think we've covered Solidify in this course. I think what had happened is I was auto playing some of the videos on the YouTube link and it just kind of skipped to the next one. I think I incepted myself thinking it was part of the course, so I added that effect to create some thickness to the clothing.
Mhm.
Uh, am I going to get demarcations for that? Did I accidentally go too far?
Um, I, I I don't think you marked off. with that?
It was in at least one of the videos where they were modeling the clothes. That was definitely in the materials that we were linked to.
Yeah.
So
So
Solidify is not something that I just accidentally stumbled on. We were actually being okay, good.
yeah, um,
Okay.
mostly looking at like topology and construction stuff.
So that said, I do have a question regarding that. So when I did the I think I subdivided some of the original shapes for the guy. I ended up doing the butcher, right? So he's big, fat,
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
rounded, round boy.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my edges are like kind of angular, and it followed like the entire line along his whole body. So you'll see like ridges, and I did my best to kind of smooth them out by, grabbing the edge loop and pulling it out to kind of smooth it out. And it looks better, but I definitely want to learn a easier way. I shouldn't say easy in this class. There's no such thing as an easy way.
30 is hard.
Yes.
Are you able to share your screen to show? Or
Sure. Let me get rid of some of this. Just drink that. Let me pull it up. Open
excuse
it
me.
on Blender. So how do I go about sharing the
Bluetooth
screen?
update.
See, share desktop one. Share. I need to add privacy security settings. Zoom. Allow. Jeez. Oh no, it says I need to quit Zoom and then reopen. So I'll be right back.
We'll be here. Any other questions that pop into your head?
Yeah, well, I don't know if this is something that can be answered this way. I was sad that I beveled some edges, like select edges, because
Mm-hmm.
later I had a strap that I extruded, I extruded from the top and then went around the character, and then I was trying to attach it back down at the bottom, but I had beveled the edges of the strap, and then I don't know. And then once I attached it, I realized that there was all kinds of weird things happening. Is there a way
Was
to
it
fix
was
that?
it like a strap for a bag or something?
It was the strap for the scabbard. It's like a crossbody. It comes out of the
Okay.
top and then it goes all the way around her torso and then attached around at her hip.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I can stop and why don't we go back to,
You're muted if you're talking.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
And I'm back. Okay, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. I did manage to smooth out a lot of them. Like, you see this like crease along the center here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could not for the life of me figure out an better way to go about um, moving it around. Oh my gosh, something's going on. I can't
If you
navigate.
so with your object selected, go up to view at the top of the report, frame selected.
Something. Oops, dang it.
Yeah, frame selected is yep.
View, frame selected.
So that
Okay.
should help you navigate a little bit better.
Okay, let me hide some of this stuff. So I'm gonna take his clothes off. So avert your eyes if you're sensitive. So where's my apron buttons, apron straps? Okay. All right. So yeah, so you can see some of these areas you can see it better here. Like it's kind of flat right along this edge.
Mm-hmm.
So when I selected just that line, it'd select the whole thing and I'd go back up to the top and like deselect these. And then I just started to kind of pull this away just to kind of give it a little bit more of an edge.
Okay.
And that seemed to help. But
Mm-hmm.
like I just had to do that. I don't know. I
Yeah,
guess I
you
answered
just
my
have like a
question.
week to do stuff, so if you have more time, like more weeks.
I mean, overall, I think I did okay. It doesn't look
Hmm.
terrible.
For a beginner, like there's a lot of people who just do hard surface. So you've done your first character.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, thanks. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this is these are the pants I was talking about. So I did what you had recommended the last time and just essentially copied him, deleted the top
Hmm.
half and legs, and just left his pants. And then I pulled the solidify away, figured out the offset.
Hmm.
And it's the wrinkle that I really wanted to add that I didn't really have time to do.
Oh yeah.
Also, I couldn't figure out his butt cheeks. Like I kept getting this weird like penguin from Batman
Concave,
Returns.
or wait,
Yeah, yeah, they're not
try to
cheeks. They're
remember
like
concave versus convex.
convex. Yeah, cave is in and
Right.
then vex is out. So yeah,
Hmm.
it looks like the penguin from Batman's butt, like for
Click
real.
on it and take away the sub. Let's see. Yeah, it's like you have to you have to craft the butt cheeks.
I thought I kind of started, you can kind of see I'd put this up
Yeah,
because all these were like along the same path and I started to move
yeah,
them up. And then I looked at the time, I'm like, all right, I can't just be spending too much time on his butt. Like I gotta move
yeah.
on.
And then what's helpful, even if you look at more realistic models, like their wireframes, you can see, and obviously they're going to be like more realistic. Even if you
Hmm.
look at maybe more stylized, well, it would have to be stylized that actually have like butt cheeks, but you can see the topology that they use, and you can try to like mimic it as much as possible. Like
Okay.
using reference, even in that aspect of like using reference of wireframes is helpful as well until you get enough like when I was telling you all last week about the face topology and the hands and stuff like that, using
Yeah.
other people's models and looking at the wireframe actually helps you be able to do that stuff better. You don't have to figure it out yourself. You
Okay.
have to look at other people's stuff until you can just do it yourself. So
I got it. Okay.
hmm
So just practice looking at
yeah.
references and it might be a good idea to take like probably an anatomy class to
Yeah,
really
yep. That's a big thing. Like, even people within the industry are not aware of how, like, even if you have like a Pixar, like a stylized character, anatomy is still important. Um, Even if it's not a hyper realistic character. So,
got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm feeling more confident with this for sure.
hmm
And I'm excited to see what this can do. But yeah, I mean, if you have a demonstration today, we could move on unless anybody else had any questions.
Olivia, did you still have
Oh yeah, what was I saying?
the strap?
Yeah, I
Oh,
want to see your cat sword.
yeah, I'm not on my computer. I can well actually no, I think I might have an image on here. But just where I was trying to attach the strap that I had already bezel? Is it a B or
Bevel.
beveled the edge?
Yep.
What's the difference between those words? Okay. Anyway,
I'm not sure if bezel is a word. If it is,
bezel,
I'm not familiar with it.
Bezel's the outside edge of a frame.
right, like like
Mm,
my ring, like a stone, like a diamond can have a bezel setting, right?
got
Okay.
it.
All right, thank you.
Never been
Had it,
engaged. So.
had a senior moment. Okay, so where I've already, oh my God, I forgot already, beveled the edges, and
Hmm.
then I wanted to attach it, and when I attached it, it just looks like somebody spackled it on there, and I couldn't smooth it because there's all those little edges and little like quads where the attachment. Is there any way to is there any way to do that? Is there any way to undo those beveled
Hmm.
edges, or just do I just have to go back to a previously saved version
Um,
again?
let's
See if I can
see.
find an image of my.
I mean, if you had a previously saved version of your strap, and then you could just, well, let me show you.
Actually, I have a question there too. Can you save just elements, or do you have to save the whole
Yeah,
file?
that's what I was gonna say. Let's see. Um, let me. So there's multiple things you can do. So let's ship this. Um, let So there's like multiple ways to do it. So like if you have, I'm just using two simple objects. But if you wanted to bring in something, so let's say this is my strap person. Just want to bring in the strap. That question, if I deleted this, so this is my strap, and then I just save other Tim. And then I open up this new file, and it will be your file, your most updated file, and you're bringing in the strap from a previous file. What you could do is, because I saved it as a Blender file, I could file and then the append, um, and I would select the one with my strap, and then I could just, there's multiple ways. Let's see, object. Yeah, I could just bring in the strap, which is the cube, and, oh, sorry, so there's like multiple ways you could bring in a collection, a whole entire collection. You could bring in an object. So I clicked on the object folder, and then this is my strap. And so I would append it, and then it brings in that. And so with your strap, it will probably be in the perfect place to kind of redo it. Another thing is if I, just for your edification, open recent, yeah. So if I have another way is to, if I just have a strap, I can export it. Some good exports are OBJ and FBX. The difference between these are OBJ, sometimes when you export that, it'll come in and it'll be gray. You can export raw materials, but more people these days are using FBX because it imports the object and the materials very easily. That's for future reference if you have material in your stuff. Another good thing about FBX, when you get into rigging and animation, is that it's brings in the rig and possibly your animation, I think. So that's why people started using it over OBJ, because OBJ only does object and materials, and the materials can be amazing sometimes. So I'm going to file export and FBX, and I'm just saving this as, and so the Blender file is like the native file, as we call it. And then FBX and OBJ are, thank you. I can't remember what they're called. Yeah, I'm sure this is on. It's somewhere on on the thing. Um, there's a term for them, but you can export from program to program. So if you ever did something in like Maya or Cinema 4D or whatever, VS Max, and once you bring them into Blender, you would typically export it in a FBX first, exchange format. It's called an exchange format. So OBJ, FBX, DAE, STLs, those are called exchange formats because you can exchange from program to program. So now if I open just this new, and then for exchange format, you have to import, and then Blender asks you to import a specific version. So we did do a FBX. And then here's my FBX. I can just import it, and it actually imported it imported the camera and the light too. So with the Blender file, since we're just kind of sticking with Blender, I could import only the strap. So you can, if I did delete the camera and the light, then it wouldn't have imported that. But yeah. So those are two ways to kind of bring in something from another file. Does that make sense?
So the first way you said, I'm sorry, when on my screen, your screen is tiny and I can't see really the words with without glasses. But so did you? I can pull up an element or an object from a previous version without having done anything specific to tell Blender that I would be doing that, or
So if you go to your previous version of your strap, you can go to that file, and then if you want to delete everything but the strap,
okay.
actually, if you can go to the object, because what I did with the Blender file, if I do new again, you actually probably don't have to do that. Because I go to file and then append for the Blender file. So you can just go, let's say that this is a just a previous version that you have like a lower, you don't have all the bevels on it. If you click that version and append and then go to the object, you can just go to the strap and select the strap. So you don't have to delete everything. And then you could append it and then append.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Append. That's the word you're using. Append.
Mhm.
APPEND.
Yes.
Okay. That could be really useful.
Mhm.
Great. Thank you. I'm trying to find a
Other
picture of my uh,
of your cat or
yeah,
I mean of
well,
your
yeah, my
character.
scabbard and everything. I guess I just have to log on from my other computer. I think that's going to be the easiest way. So I also am I'm gonna exit and come back in a moment.
Oakley dokley. So
Leaving. Okay, see you in a minute.
I want to leave that demonstration. 30 minutes. Yeah, I'll wait for Libby to come back for demonstration. Any other last questions? While we're waiting. Hopefully you're not talking to me.
Oh, no, no, I'm just
Okay,
messing around with this file still. I'm having a lot of fun. Like I'm,
that's good.
yeah, I'm excited about this, and I've been having dreams about Blender now. It's big,
Yes,
it's incepted my,
convert.
yeah. Well, I have all
So
these
like
character designs
with
that I wanted 3D.
yeah, with how I understand, like, I was actually looking at a YouTube video of a person who was saying that she was taking a Blender class, and I just was like, the way she was mapping out all her assignments, I'm like, some people think I'm like teaching too much in this class, but I was just like, she was creating like whole projects every week. Like, well, at least I don't have my students doing that. It was like whole scenes.
Oh, wow.
And some of it was like very simplified, but it was still like kind of a lot for a week. Um, but with how, because I understand that when you open a 3D program, it can be very intimidating. But with how we've done going in this class, it's like it just kind of takes away the intimidation. Do you think?
Yeah, no, you definitely made it entry level as far as the
Mhm.
approach. So we appreciate your lax way of teaching this, I can call it without insulting you.
Yeah, like the school really wants, because it's like a continuing education class, so it's not
Sure.
necessarily going to be like college students. It's going to be just like adults that are interested. And because it's in college, they want it to be accessible and think about people who are busy and stuff like that. So that goes into the laxness of the late policy and stuff like that, where just trying to think of because also when I first taught this in summer 2023, I kind of threw everything in the kitchen sink in here, and so after one of somebody I actually know took my class last spring, and they were talking about a topology thing, which it's just like even it's just really hard to teach everything about topology in like one class, but I pared it down much more. So you used to get to the materials quicker, what we're doing this week, but I just kind of wanted to pare it down and try to get people's brains wrapped around the idea of topology and the idea of construction, because even if you don't do it perfectly, at least you are introduced to it. And
Sure.
even if people want to go low poly after this class, there are still skills that I try to teach that is still beneficial in a low poly style.
Love it. Well, I for one am fully on board. And I haven't checked other courses that are offered, but is there more of after this beginner course? I'm assuming there's more of an intermediate.
I have brought it to my department head about an intermediate course, just like the funding, and so it's still a bug in his ear. Because I brought it to him a year and a half ago. So, and the
I thought,
continuing education department is actually bringing in the most students for the school, so that's cool.
All
I thought I
right.
saw that there's a Blender animation class.
Yeah, that's still a beginner. There's no intermediate modeling class.
Oh,
So I have told my department head about that because sometimes like education, because the idea with this course is like preparing people for like industry. Um, and I feel like they were surprised when I said an introductory course is not all that's needed to prepare somebody for the industry. Because there's like a
I would say so.
disconnection between like regular people and like what is realistic for 3D. So I was just like, yeah, even after an intermediate class, you wouldn't necessarily be prepared for the industry, but yeah, after a beginner class, you definitely like wouldn't be like, oh, I can go get a job. Like,
Yeah, I already know I'm gonna have to do this for another year or two before I feel confident even taking a job to do actual modeling.
yeah. And so if somebody was like, because there are all type of styles, so if it's a matter of like just using shapes to build something and somebody was okay with that, like, there's that low poly style, so possibly somebody would pay you to do that. I'm not saying that you can't like start making money or anything. uh you just have to find the right client.
Yeah, yeah. In due time.
Yeah. So um Olivia,
So would
because I wanted to just wait till you came back, Olivia, to do the demonstration. Were you about to say something?
I'm here. If you want to do a demonstration, that's
Okay.
good.
yeah, let's do it.
Thank you.
All right. So a lot of this is already videos that you'll be watching. Um, but I did want to show an extra thing that's actually going to be attributed to next week. But with next week, it's like a lot of information. So I just want to show one thing this week. But so as far as materials, typically this mode, the solid mode, is what you're going to be in for most of the modeling we've done. So to be able to actually see your materials as they're applied, up here in the upper right corner of the viewport, there's this material preview section. So I'm going to click on that, and it's not going to make that much of a difference because we just have a white material on here. Let me some controls. So very basic of adding a material. Once you open up Blender, if you have the default cube in there, that's going to come with a material already. But if any object you make after that is not going to have a material. So if you already have a material, it's always going to be a principal BSDF. Somewhere on the module, it tells you what the BSDF stands for. And then this is the base color. So our color right now is white. The way we can change that is just to click the color block. And then we have, RGB. If you have like a RGB code that you want to put in, HSB, and then there's hexadecimal. So if you go on to like a Adobe Color or one of the many websites that provide you with color schemes or something, and they have the hex code, you can copy and paste that. We also have the eyedropper. So if you can use the eyedropper to get something from in the scene, you can do that as well. And we have our color wheel. So we start in the black and white. So we start in the lightest part of the black and white. So if I go kind of down to the red, you can see it changed in the viewport to red. But if I want a deeper red, I'm just going to move the black and white down. It's just going to give me a deeper color. So you can play around, whether you want to manually play around, or you can just find the hex code or the RGB code or the HS. I don't know how many people give HSV, but there it's out there. And then you can play around just with the different values, the tinting and the color theory stuff. I can't remember the words right now. But yeah, play around with going from light to dark. Now, and then a good practice is to name your materials. So I could just double click right here, or I can click in this box right here. Let's just call it. And it's got so if you for simplicity purposes, you don't want to continually make multiple versions of the same material, because I'll give an example, and it'll just be easy to just speak that way. So when I worked in South Korea at an animation studio, I worked on Family Guy, and we only had like 2 3D modelers. So me and my coworker Gio, and sometimes I would get some of his work. And at the time, we were using a program called Softimage XSI, which is defunct now. I just bought it and killed it. But it was like the materials he would have when sometimes I would get like for one assignment, Brian's car for Family Guy. Ji-young had already made it in Softimage, and I needed to make a crashed version because it got into an accident. So typically, when I would get Ji-young's projects, I would consolidate, because let's say Brian's car, which was, I can't remember what kind of car it was, but it was gray, light gray. And so the door would have one material, the trunk would have another gray, but it's all the same gray, but it's like every object would have different materials. And if we take, so in the overseas studios, sometimes they do the vehicles in 3D. So all the vehicles for Family Guy and Cleveland Show were in 3D. Sometimes like we would reuse cars, but you had like for Fox, you had to change it in some way. It couldn't be the exact same car. So I might get like a Cadillac or something like that looks like a Cadillac, and it would be purple, but I had to change it to blue. If I got Ji-young's project, I would have to change like 52 purples to 52 blues. But that's why I would consolidate it, because if I make it all one material, I only have to change it once. And so if you ever have to come back to a project, or if you ever have a client who's like, oh, I like it, but it's pink, I want to make it yellow. If you could just change one yellow, that would be great. So that's the context for what I'll show you. So
So sorry to interrupt. So
Mhm.
your coworker had all these different colors, not because it needed to look different, all the pieces, but just
It was the exact same color, just
he just
multiple
didn't like them.
materials.
Okay.
Yeah. So for example, what that would look like is, let's see, if I were to be like, all right, I want the red on here, but I'm just going to create a new material, and I'm going to go here, red, and it's the same exact red, but it's 2 different materials, because this one is called red, and call this one. But if a client was like, oh yeah, I want you to make it yellow, if I go here and go up, then I would have to copy to make this one. Yeah. So yeah. So a better way is, if I go to this, I can go to this drop down right here, this ball, and I can just pick which one I want it to be. So if I want it to be red or if I want it to be yellow. And then if a client is like, oh, actually now I want this to be blue, I just change it to blue and it changes both. See? And then, okay, adding materials to part of your object. So I can tab into edit mode and then I can select part of the object. So it's always good to add a base color first. And then if you want to add a second color, I'm gonna add a face. And I'm gonna select that ring of bases. What you're going to do over here on the right, and this is again still on the material tab, I'm going to add a plus sign, and it's going to give me this empty thing, and you're going to click new. And if I want to keep it white, you know, I could rename it because you want to always know what, because sometimes you'll have a texture and it'll be like floor texture or like a wooden texture, and so you always want to name your stuff so you can find stuff easily later. As you can see, I made the material, but it's not applied yet because you always have to assign. So you have your selection, and then you assign, and then now it's on there. If I do this one, I can select that face, and then I can actually choose one that's already existing. Oh wait, wait, I need the plus sign. Plus, and then choose one that already exists, and assign. So that's how you can assign to materials to particular areas, and that's why I said the positioning of the eyeball for a character. If we position the eyeball to the front of the camera, I can make this white, and then if I want to select, I'm going to change this to select circle, paint my selection, and I can plus sign new, and then change this to like a black. Sign, and now I have an eyeball and I'm using the geometry of the sphere. So that's why I said you can rotate your eyeballs to the front and just use the geometry that already exists to create like a pupil or even an iris. So, any questions about any of that?
Nope. Makes sense.
So if I create another object, if I don't want this to be connected to this anymore, the way I break the material link, so if you see, okay, so right here we have a number, and that's typically the number of objects that have this material on it. And so you can click that number, and now as you can see, the name of it changed, and now it's a different version. So if I change this color, it's only going to change the ones that are still kind of in this number. But since I broke the link, this is a separate version, and then I can just, if I need to change it to any other color, I can. Additionally, let me just leave that just in case. Let me do Shift A and 2, 1, 2, 1. If I want to put a color on this, if I want to, I'm like, okay, I got all these objects and I actually want this green to be on all these objects at the same time, but I don't want to like go individually and put them on there. You can link the materials. So how I do that, and the selection order is very important. So first, you select the objects that you want to transfer to, and then last, you you select the object with the material that you want to transfer. So kind of if you understand like a parent-child relationship, you select children first, and then you do Control L, and that brings up the link transfer data menu, and you're going to link the materials. And so now all of your material, all your objects have the same material on it, and you didn't have to like do it one by one. Any questions about that? I figured out because before I thought you couldn't link materials if you had the face, like if you had the face, so like before, if you just try to link materials right now, Control L, if you just link materials, it'll only do the base, it won't do the actual strip that you did. But there is a way to do this. Control L, and it would be, let's see, I think it's link object data. Yes, if you do link object data, it'll transfer your face materials as well. So that's cool. But if you just do link materials, then it'll just do the base material. And then lastly, we're going to get more into textures next week. This is technically called a procedural texture, but it can also be called a procedural material as well, because sometimes, depending on what it is, material and texture can be interchangeable. But typically, for next week's assignment, when talking about textures, it's usually like you're using an image, but it just depends. So this is a procedural material. This means that it kind of, well, in this instance, it exists inside of Blender, and it's like a more advanced. So the way to do this, right here, typically to change the material, you click on the color bar. This time we're going to click on this yellow dot next to base color. And then this is a brick texture. So the reason I'm showing you, oh wait, I want to disconnect this. So I'm going to click this number and then change that because I don't want to change all the ones. So the reason I'm showing you brick texture is because just off of looking at this, no matter how much you play with this, it'll never look correct. You have to do more than it's intuitive to correct this brick texture. So I just want to show you that this week. I'm just going to go to the shading tab up here. So what you have to do, if you don't already have, and there are many settings for this brick texture. I think there's going to be a procedural textures video for next week, so it'll show you all the different settings and stuff like that. Excuse me, but as far as like making this land on the cube properly, what you first have to make sure is go to the edit up top and go to preferences, and then go to the add-ons tab on the left. And if we put in the word node, N-O-D-E, you should turn on the node ring. This it's going to be, once you start, like after this class, once you start looking up some tutorials, people might be using the node wranglers. This will be a very helpful add-on to have on. And you don't have to download this. This should already be. Just let me know. It should already be in. So I have the node wrangler activated. What it does is make sure to not have, you don't have everything selected because it'll create this for every node right here. You just want to make sure to have the brick texture selected. So just select the brick texture node and then go to Control T on your keyboard, and it creates these two nodes. It's a mapping node and a texture coordinates node. And then all you have to do after this is like we have these little kind of ropes that go from node to node. I'm just gonna click on the vector and drag. Well, let me actually click on the UV of this one and drag to vector. So you can always do that to anything. You just clicking and dragging to change the different things. So UV of the texture coordinate node, which is a maroon color, to the vector of the mapping node, which is a purple strip. And then this is how you're going to get the brick to show up properly. Like there's like no way in the settings of the brick texture to make this. For anybody who wants to use the brick texture next week's assignment, this is going to be clutch. Then change the scale. So bigger numbers mean smaller. So I'm changing the scale to 50 in the brick texture. Like you could change the scale here, but then you have to change all these so just change the scale in the brick texture. So yeah, this is how I can have more bricks. And it's pretty good, pretty good. So, any questions about that?
This looks so complicated. All these, the whole instruction page on nodes. I was like, oh my gosh, what is all this? It's
Yeah,
like
it can get
throwing it together
complex.
a computer, a motherboard or something.
And the thing, like when you look at some tutorials, and you know, my brain is made to like look up what other people have done. When you look at what people have figured out, I'm like, how did your brain do that? Because you know, obviously there's some simple like purple to purple. You can't go purple to yellow, so well you can, I guess. But typically it's going to be like you're gonna go color to color. So that can help you with like figuring stuff out. I'm just not a figure outer like that. Like I can figure out analytical stuff, but like I don't know. Some people who create, and then I remember when I was teaching a high school class of 3D, and so I had to come up with a lot of curriculum. And I found out like you can do, for anybody who's done like calculus, you can use like parametric equations to create shapes and nodes. I'm like, I mean, actually, I was actually really good in math. I did go up to calculus, but I'm sure like if you could combine, like I know Khan Academy has had like a little Pixar thing where they showed you how to do 3D. But if you can combine using 3D like Blender and parametric and I think is that geometry, to use that and you can visualize it, I'm sure that would help a lot of kids understand like parabolas and all that type of stuff, and you know different formulas and how they manifest. Because yes, you can draw the curve or whatever, but to just be able to use a formula and just change it in Blender and it'll change a curve, like that's crazy.
Yeah, I watched the extra resource doing the dreadlocks, and that
Mm-hmm.
just blew me away. I was like,
Yeah,
look at all those settings. I mean, this guy has it
yeah,
down. He knows what he's doing. I thought
yeah.
his face was so good. His face was so good.
And we've come a long way because, you know, as a person who would be more likely to create a character with dreadlocks, the amount we've come on doing like African like hairstyles, like with coarse texture. And it's mostly from like Black or African people just like testing it out. Because a lot of, you know, people complained in like video games about like, oh man, I could be like I'm Black and I can only be bald and like have an afro and maybe dreads. But yeah, we've come a long way of like the intricacies. Like even when that trailer for one of the Into the Spider-Verse video games came out and Miles like had like a little fade, it was like, wow, we've come a long way.
Yeah, it's just the math involved in, I don't even know how people, I mean,
Yeah.
it's incredible amount of math in this program. And
Yeah, and luckily as artists, because like people always throughout my career, like, oh, do you know how to code? I'm like, no. like the people that code are like that's the behind the scenes of the like program. I don't actually have to code anything. I just have to figure out how did they apply the code to what like these nodes that I just showed you for materials. I mean, obviously that's coding behind the scenes, but you just have to figure out how to use
Mind
the
blowing.
nodes. Yeah.
Those dreadlocks though, I was just so blown away. And I was driving on the freeway and we passed a section of the 57 where there was a lot of weeping willows, I think.
Yeah.
And they just had that texture, and I was just looking at them like out of the corner of my eye, like, look at that texture.
Yeah. Actually, back in 2017, I did like a daily art challenge, and I did a black hairstyle for each letter of the alphabet, and I did it with my skill set at the time, so that was mostly just like 3D modeling, so it's very stylized. But I would love to retackle it and do more realistic hair. Um, so
One for each letter of the alphabet.
like A is for afro,
Okay, okay.
C is for comp, D is for grids.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Cool.
once you get to the end of the alphabet, you're kind of making stuff up. Zipper braid, which I did find a zipper braid. It's not necessarily a black hairstyle, but I'm just like, black people can wear it.
Well, I actually just spent many years living in Central, I've lived all over Africa, so East, Central,
Hmm.
West.
Hmm.
And one thing I noticed is like something, I don't know, do people do this in the US? Like
Hmm.
women wear wigs and they change them
Hmm.
out like constantly. Like in the beginning, I would have trouble recognizing people because like the hairstyle was so drastically different than it was yesterday.
Yeah,
Do people
black
do
women
that
talk
here?
about a lot, like, because yes, because black women, like, I keep my hair short, so I don't have to deal with this, but like, women with longer hair, they'll like have braids, and then like, because I lived in Korea, and so pretty much people have like, you know, for this part of your life as a child, you have this hairstyle, and then you might change as like a adult, and then once you become an ajima, like an older lady, you get like a perm or something. But there's pretty much the same hairstyle, and so
Oh my God,
um,
are perms for Ajumas?
yeah, yeah. So like and then for white people too. So like once you're like a black woman in a corporate environment, you're just like, oh, did you grow your hair? Like, no, I just got like braids. So yeah, that was my life. Let's see, when did I go short? I went short in like 2012 or something. But when I actually had hair, um, like being born to like uh beginning of my 30s. I don't know. Let's see. Oh no, that was in my 20s. I haven't had long. Oh man, I spent all of my 30s with short hair. That's crazy. But yes, but yeah, I don't really have the questions or like yeah, and then a lot of people, you're not alone. A lot of people were like thinking that it was a totally different person. They had a different hairstyle.
Yeah.
So
Even
funny.
like when I show people pictures of like when I had like relaxed hair and then a big afro, they're like, "Oh, you look like three different people." I was like me to me. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So this is completely unrelated.
Hmm.
Um, I want to talk about hair more, but I do have a serious question.
Hmm.
So everyone seems to be like freaking out about, AI integration and
Hmm.
what it means to most industries. So
Yeah.
as a graphic artist, I see a lot of clients kind of like leaning towards that. Midjourney is
Hmm.
creating a lot of stuff. I use
Yeah.
it, I manipulate it, make it look better because usually it looks like trash. I am feeling as though 3D is a safe space as far as future-proofing a career choice, mostly because computer AI can't quite do 3D modeling, but I'm fearful of
Well,
the
they
word
won't use it
yet.
to do 3D modeling per se. Like, the sad thing for me as a 3D modeler, is like when you look at the articles where it's like top things in animation that will go away, like the jobs that will go away, like 3D modeling is on the list. I'm just like, wow, okay, because like they will just create the final image and then have it animate, so they don't have to model it.
That's what I was afraid you were gonna say.
Yeah, the thing that I'm wondering about, and it just really has to play out. I can't really predict anything, But
Sure.
because I have seen like YouTube channels that have like a lot of AI stories. Like I saw this like Bible YouTube channel where it was like maybe telling the story of Ruth or something. And audiences, like you would think with like giving like Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, all these people giving like high quality images, that if somebody used AI and it's like sometimes it's just a still image or it's minimal moving, that audiences wouldn't like that. But you like what I learned from the 2010s of like watching a lot of live action YouTube movies or like TV shows or something like that, where people were doing it more independently, people will give you a lot of grace on the visuals if you have a good story. So it's just like, yes, there's like a higher taste factor with doing it quote unquote traditionally, but when will if the companies start releasing these films, when will the audiences get tired of it? Like you can
Mm,
already see the kind of fatigue of like the Mid-Journey style of like, oh my god, like how many things are gonna look exactly like this?
I hate it.
Yes, but it's like, when will the lay person get tired? And I don't know when. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So
It's the old vote with your wallet.
yeah, but
Okay.
I don't know because I know there's like a lot of layoffs and stuff. But I think a lot of companies are switching to trying to do an AI pipeline, and it's just like, fingers crossed for it just not working. Like there's something that they didn't think of where it's like, oh, this is actually not worth it, and we just want people.
Yeah, I mean, I have to integrate it mostly as I see it as a tool more
Yeah.
than a threat.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
okay. Just curious on your thoughts about
Hmm.
the whole, because I
Just
love
like
this. This
in the
is
like being in the industry, it's very taboo to talk about AI. It's like I tell people like it's like talking about illicit drugs. Like if you tell people that you're using like AI,
they'll
so
judge you quietly.
yeah, like you do it in secret, like quiet, like
Go to the
here's
bathroom,
the
take a hit of some
AI.
AI.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, like well, my ex-boyfriend, I was telling him because he's a writer. I'm like, I don't know. You would have to like, I don't know how many writers you want to tell that are you're using Chat GPT, but like you should use it just in case it becomes the industry standard, and then you at least you don't have to like learn it, but don't tell anybody. But
Yeah, I
like
mean, they're
with
saying,
just like regular artists on just social media, I think it's not taboo in that. It's just like industry, and
I
mostly just
got you.
because they're not. It's like you're using people's artwork and not giving them credit. You're using it to mine people's work, and then you're like, oh, let me this artist that I like, let me put it in Midjourney, let me use this person's name style, and it's like not like that. People already don't respect art
Yeah,
now, and now you're taking away people's money and the way they sustain their lives. Like they've spent this their whole lives creating a style just for you to steal it.
it's sickening. And of all things that robots have taken over, I'm like, dude, you can't do my dishes.
Man, it's and people like try to talk about this of like, oh, it's easier, but that's why we become artists sometimes. Like
Yeah,
if you're just like a hobbyist, yeah, but like some of us choose this as a career because we don't want it. We like the journey. We like figuring things out. And yeah, like you're saying, once you become an adult and you realize I gotta like choose what I have to eat for the rest of my life, okay, use AI to give me that.
yes. Simplify dumb things, not cool things. Damn it.
I'm like the meals that we had over and over again as a child, just because like our moms were just tired of cooking, like spaghetti again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So.
it's a weird time we're living in. All right. I mean, I'm confident enough in my abilities to utilize it and
Hmm.
I don't want to rely on any one thing. So,
Yeah.
but okay. Just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you for your candor.
No problem.
All right. So I guess I didn't have any further questions regarding this.
Preguntas.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
All
Yeah.
right.
I mean, I had millions of questions while I was doing it. It was like, ah, but I'm
Yeah.
good.
That happens so much. I need to start taking notes of what questions I need to ask.
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep that in
Um,
mind.
So yeah, this week should be pretty easy, because it's just about materials. And
So
people, are allowed to get really creative, particularly next week when we get into the game room. Really, who have maybe even been struggling, it's like, oh, now this is your jam because it's like it's just kind of easy. Pretty much say everything.
Got you. Oh, quick question. Are you going to WonderCon this weekend?
No, I've heard about people going, but cons, like I've only gone to cons. Like I've been to several since I've lived in LA. It's just like I usually am a moderator and I'm going for free. So yeah. Are you going?
Yeah, I get to go for free, so I kind of want to go.
Yeah. Um yeah, like it was much better when I like my ex-boyfriend was like buying me things there. But if I have to pay for myself, you realize how expensive the things are when you have to pay yourself. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, I go for inspiration. I love to meet artists and just,
Yeah.
I spend most of my time in Artist Alley.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, nice. Yeah. It was kind of funny. I have a friend that does cons all over the country, and when I was in New Orleans, he would like always invite me to come talk to him, and so he would give me like a pass. And it wasn't until like the last time where I was like, oh, I get a pass, so like I could actually like use this to go to. I just would get the pass to go talk to him because I hadn't seen him in a long time, and I
That's
just sit
so
at his booth.
funny.
I just would sit up like, oh AJ, I haven't seen you in a while, so like let's chop it up, and then we might go get something to eat if it was like at the end of his day of like working his booth or whatever. But it was like I was like, 'cause I don't know, I don't go to cons, so I'm just like, oh, this is the pass, so I can like go to.
Dude, people watching at those places is all time.
Yes, particularly with the
Yeah,
good like cosplays and stuff. People
bro,
do like
people are nuts,
times.
bro. And once 3D printing came into the play, like
Yeah,
dudes have like the power armor from Fallout, like they just made it at home. Like, dude, what the? It's
I
crazy.
can't remember if it was when I went to MomoCon or was it a con in California, but I remember seeing this guy had the Alpha cop, like the Alpha from Power Rangers cosplay,
Oh yeah,
and the lights lit up. It was like,
insane, dude. Like high quality shit. Oh my God. One last thing. We
mm-hmm.
finally finished the last season of Invincible.
Oh,
I don't
nice,
know.
nice, nice.
Holy shit, dude. We cry at like everything. We were done. Like I don't want to spoil anything, but I was a wreck by the end of that one.
Yeah.
So nice work. Whatever you did on that show, congratulations. It's
Yep. They
spectacular.
just asked me for my well, how I want it to be. They're doing the credits for season 4. My boss just
Perfect.
asked me this week, what do you want to be? Oh, well, for episode 401. Deborah Ayers. So many Deborah Andersons. And not that everybody thinks my middle name is Ann. They're like, Deborah Ann? I'm like, no. But yeah, we're on 4 and 5. We're working on 4 and 5. So,
Oh, that makes me so happy. It's so good, dude. My goodness.
mm-hmm.
So excellent work. High fives all around. Yep.
Alrighty. So, see you all in the inbox or see you all next week.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
You too.
thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.